Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of Action Items. Forgive me if my eyes are kind of roaming here. I'm trying to, I think that there is the camera. I'm on a different device today, so trying to figure things out while we're traveling here in Atlanta this month. So again, welcome to Action Items, where we give you actionable takeaways related to all things digital supply chain. I'm your host, Dyci and Stephanie Shrader, and I'm excited to have you join us again here today. If you're back, if it is your first time, thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to join us for Action Items. This episode is brought to you by Nugent Architects, a digital transformation consulting agency helping businesses navigate the complex world of technology and supply chain management. The Nugent Architects team of supply chain experts works with clients in all phases of the implementation lifecycle, from initial planning to post-implementation support. This includes ERP tool selection, project management, and business transformation road mapping. To learn how Nugent Architects can support your business scale and grow, please visit nugentarchitects.com for more information and to schedule a free discovery session with a member of our team. So before we get into the episode, it is a busy month for the NGA team as well as for the industry. It is March, and that means that we are full swing into conferences, live events, webinars, virtual events. A lot is going on. As far as I know, a lot is going to also be going on in May. So for the NGA team, we wrapped up Georgia Logistics Summit this week. We were down in Savannah. That was tons of fun to hear about all of the things in logistics and manufacturing, how that's going to relate to the market down in Georgia. So that was really interesting. And then next week, the team will be at the Advancing Prefab Manufacturing Conference in Phoenix. So if you will be there, we would love to hear from you. We would love to meet you and talk all things prefab manufacturing and logistics supply chain. In the last week of the month, you guys will not see me before then because we are going to be doing another show in April. The last week of the month, we will be at the World of Modular in Las Vegas. And we were super excited to be talking about modular manufacturing and how manufacturers can leverage supply chain operations to grow their companies, process improvement, things like that. So the Nugent Architects team has 2 sessions. I'll be speaking. One of our manufacturing SMEs will be speaking. And we will also be on the exhibit floor with a booth talking about some of our different technology partners and our services. So if you will be at the World of Modular in Las Vegas, we would love to also meet you there. All righty, without further ado, let's bring up our guest to the stage. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I am great, despite the gloomy weather. Is it gloomy up your way also in Tennessee, or is it just a Georgia thing?
I am in Tennessee. I'm in Nashville today. I'm looking out the window right now, and yeah, it looks like a little bit of windy, a little bit overcast, wintry kind of look.
Yeah, there was a fake spring. Now now winter is coming back before spring actually comes. Yeah, so it's that time of the year. So thanks so much for joining, Stephanie. I would love for you to give the audience, for anyone who does not know you, a little brief background of your world and your involvement in procurement and manufacturing.
Absolutely. So I'm Steph Shrader. I am coming to you from Nashville today, which is technically my home. However, I moved a year and a half ago to Las Vegas, Nevada. So I took a big leap, big career change as far as industry goes. I've been in procurement for about 27 years. I've done everything from the procurement side to the sourcing side to the logistics side and the whole supply chain surrounded with the manufacturing space. But I did take a big leap of faith and thought, I want to try something different. I want to be in a different industry and kind of still grow my career. So I moved to Vegas about a year and a half ago to be a part of a company that's now called Light and Wonder Gaming. It was originally Scientific Gaming. We're one of the largest companies in the gaming industry in that space. There's only a handful of us. And it has been probably one of the best decisions. And we could have a whole show on that as far as being at a certain point in your career and taking a big jump. But it's been great. So right now I took the job in strategic sourcing to move me out there. And I decided about 6-7 months into it, the company came to me and said, hey, we need somebody to run our procurement department. And that's one of my loves. So I took it on, and now I'm running the procurement department for Light and Wonder out of their Vegas site.
Right. Cool. And I know we kind of talked about pre-show and topic. You have done everything from the process improvement, the hiring, the team structure, the technology tools, figuring out what's going to work, what's not going to work. So I think that in the sake of not having yet another episode where I don't get to all the action items or we rush through all of them, let's go ahead and get into the action items. So the first action item we have is to create a supplier relationship management policy. And it's very interesting because we're talking procurement and we're talking cost savings and automation. And, I think it's really important that we make sure that we say procurement doesn't stop after you've procured the thing. So you have your procurement process that you're looking to automate and that you're developing, but then you also have that SRM, whichever vendor you decide to go with, and contracting and things like that. So what are some tips and tricks that you've thought of, that you have experienced, or lessons learned that we can tell the audience, like, learn from my mistake, don't do what I did when creating, or maybe it wasn't a mistake that you saw, maybe it was something that you learned from someone else. But when it comes to creating these procurement policies that will then flow into ongoing supplier relationship management.
Sure. So number one, it is imperative to have policies and to understand kind of where you're at now and where you're going. In the company that I'm in now, and some people may relate to this, you may have different divisions. Like we have a sourcing group and then we have a procurement group. Procurement, where I'm at now, is more transactional. However, you're still developing different policies and working with the sourcing team who has what I'm going to call the primary supplier relationship. And you're working in tandem with them to develop policies and processes that are going to flow through. But one of the mistakes that I see made, and I've made this myself, is thinking, and this is kind of old school, so I go back a little ways, but when you're thinking that I'm the customer, it's all my way, I am the customer. So I'm sorry, but when I come to you, if you tell me you can't do it, well, I'm the customer. You have to do it. And we kind of took years and years ago that attitude in the procurement space of, it's not really about a supplier management relationship. There's no real relationship. I'm the customer, and what I say goes. It is 100% opposite of that today. You have got to forge those relationships and hold on to those relationships, make policies that will kind of even embolden those relationships, and policies that can be translated as we go into different, even automated things that you can do with this. But it is imperative to think of the supplier as a partner with you and create your policies around what you're going to do to build that relationship. On the back end, the transactional side, we can automate things and we can make things easier. And as we do that, it actually helps us have more time to build those relationships. But it's just critical.
So you know this better than me, but I remember maybe it was the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, where there was a lot of conversation around procurement and that relationship, and how procurement, had the front seat and everyone wanted to know where our suppliers, et cetera. And there was also a time where there were smaller brands, and technically I am the customer. They were getting kicked out of warehouses because we need the space for, our other customers. So it is very important. I love that you talked about that piece of it, because I think that anyone who is the supplier, is that the correct term? Let me think this through how to articulate it. Anyone who is providing the service or the product to the customer, they also have the, is this a good customer? You know, on their side, their thing, is this a good customer? Is this someone we want to do business with? It's not just about money. So you don't have that upper hand, especially now where you need these strategic partnerships when, as we all saw, things kind of get really disrupted. The people who had strong relationships and didn't bully their suppliers were the ones who were able to, you know, ride the wave a little bit longer and with a little bit less, you know, wave sickness.
Absolutely. COVID, really that time period coming into that, all of a sudden, and it was almost like, and I hope some of the viewers also kind of felt this too, and it wasn't just me, but it was almost like overnight you had this, wait a minute, things have just changed immediately. And it was kind of a wake up call to, okay, I really have to go find this quickly. I need to talk to them. Oh, wait a minute, we haven't paid them, or, you know, anything right. that can
we're
come up.
30 days behind on an invoice. I don't know if they're going to take my call. Right?
Exactly. Or, and it can even be other things. We're the small guy on the totem pole. They treat us really well, but we're the small guy. I don't know that they're going to prioritize us with that electronic chip needed. And, you know, in the industry that I'm in, it happened to be all of the type of parts that went on allocation. So you don't have a digital slot machine without a chip. You know, and so that's the number one thing. If we all talk supply chain, it's like chips. Can we get chips? Where can we get chips? How much do you pay for them? So yes, it really turned things upside down. And it's one of the areas that now coming out of it with the procurement team that I have, even though we're more transactional, we still talk to the supplier or deal with the supplier every single day. So it has become imperative to say to them, we have to treat them right. You know, we have to go out of our way for them, just like they're trying to go out of their way for us. We have to kind of partner with them and work with our sourcing team who holds that higher level relationship with them. But it's like night and day, the way that we have to go to market now and the sourcing aspect to find that supplier, the relationship that you build from the get-go. There were some suppliers that I would tell you that we really didn't have a great relationship with to begin with. It was just, hey, I buy from you, you sell me, I don't know anything about you. We need to get in, and there's a little practice that I call 3 deep. So what I'm saying to our purchasing team is, you know, we need to be 3 deep. We need to know who our main contact is, who their supervisor or manager is, and then who's the next step. Maybe it's a finance person. 3 contacts deep in that supplier's business so that we can be talking to them. And if one person leaves, we're not out in the cold with, I don't know where to go. And we need to be building those relationships. And we're starting to do things, weekly meetings now that we never had before. And it doesn't have to be weekly. If a customer is, or a supplier in this case, is smaller, maybe it's a monthly meeting, but a touch base with them to make sure we're all on the same page. And it also helps if you get into, I know one of your things, you know, is AI and automation and how cool that is. So when you build those relationships, a lot of people are afraid of AI. You know, it's either going to take my job away, or it's from a supplier standpoint, another portal I'm going to have to do something with that I don't get and we're not trained. But if you start from the beginning and really start to value them, and it all comes down to valuing who you're dealing with. But if you value them, then you can have those conversations with, hey, we're looking at automating our contract management space. And you may not hear from us when it's about to expire going forward. You may have a reach out from an email that says, we would like to renew our contract or whatever. Don't be afraid. Let's talk, you know. And so I think, well, it's like people, anything we do to build a relationship, the highs and the lows that come with it we're still committed to each other. You know, we're still there and we can weather those storms. But yeah, COVID changed everything and changed the way we do business today. Just like when the World Trade Centers went down, the way we fly, 100% different today than it was prior to that. COVID with business, 100% different. And if we make a mistake and start backpedaling and get into this kind of this nonchalant, we forgot about it, COVID was 5 years ago, you're going to be in trouble. It's moving very fast and in a different way.
Yeah, it's funny because I always say, and this is something that I very specifically remember learning this in my 11th grade government course, and that people have short memory spans. So once the next thing is happening, like we've already almost forgotten about the COVID disruption, and we're now in like, oh, recession's coming, and like recession, like we're only focused on that, as opposed to, okay, wait, what were the learnings from COVID? Let's keep up with that.
Yes.
Because and when you were talking about strategic sourcing and, you know, coming up with these new policies post COVID, I know a couple of people in procurement who were hired at manufacturers to really build out this strategic procurement and what is digital and how can we, build better relationships. And then once, recession is coming, it was, well, maybe we don't need to do that thing anymore. Actually, we're going to not do this. So it's one of those things to where, and I get it, you have to prioritize, but we have to remember the learnings and not to repeat the same thing in 5 years or 10 years. And I remember a couple of years ago, I did Supply Chain Now with Greg White and Scott. And some of the things that I was saying, Greg was like, yeah, I've been saying these same things for 20 years. And apparently we're just here, yet again. So everything repeats itself. There are a couple of things that I do want to touch on. Before I do that, I saw Nicole pop a couple of comments of just people saying, hi, thanks for joining. I don't remember everyone's name, but there was a question about ISO. And I don't know if we can see that one again. Nicole, if you can pop, why don't more supply chain organizations get certified in ISO? From Roger. I know a lot of supply chain organizations certified in ISO.
ISO. So I've worked for companies that are ISO certified, and I've worked for companies that are not ISO certified. It brings an element of discipline to your organization, which is wonderful. The time it takes, the resources, the people, the money it takes. It's not just something that you can go in and say, hey, we're going to write take a sheet of paper, we're going to write a nice little process and put it in our little book and we're good and it costs nothing and somebody can do it in their spare time. You really almost have to have a dedicated team to do that. And a lot of us in this day and time don't have those teams, or during COVID, we took those teams and we haven't put them back. So that's it. There are really, depending on the industry you're in, there are reasons to say it's worth the time, it's worth the money, it's worth the resources. In the industry I'm in, not really. There are other things that may improve our processes and not have to go to that level of certification, or it wouldn't mean anything to our customer base. They would say, oh, that's great, don't care, that kind of thing. So
that makes sense. And my experience is that because so many of our customers lately are in manufacturing, warehousing, and construction, a lot of them do business with the government. Ooh, and they are ISO certified. Because that's something that, it checks the box that kind of puts you to the next level. But you mentioned there's your customer care. In this case, their customer is the government, and the government does care. So
and they say you have to. That's right.
It's probably company size, industry, a couple of different factors that go into that. Okay, so going back to our second action item, and it actually came up a couple of points that you made. Identify accountable resources. So you mentioned sourcing, procurement, and I hear purchasing also. So from my experience in working with that small and medium business, sometimes it's just all the same. I am one person. I am purchasing, but I also maybe do procurement. I also maybe do sourcing for all intents and purposes. But once you get into larger organizations, those are separate departments. And you mentioned that you have sourcing, you have procurement. So when it comes to this policies that we're talking about, the procurement processes, the sourcing processes, from your experience, how are those three departments or roles different? And then, like, what really draws the line in the sand in a larger organization? And then who is accountable for what in figuring out what this procurement, strategic sourcing, supplier relationship management policy looks like?
Okay, so I've come from both sides. I've come from a company where I was 15 years with them, where you wore many hats. And so it was just like you said, you did the tactical, the transactional, you placed the PO, but you also found the supplier you were going to buy it from and you negotiated. You did everything. I'm going to fast forward to where I'm at now because I'm in a larger corporation. I went from about a $250 million corporation to, at the time I came over here, it was a $9 billion company. They've since sold off some of our divisions, let's say. And so we're somewhere in the 2.5 to 3, the gaming part of it, 2.5 to $3 billion. So it's fairly large. We do segment, we have sourcing, we have what I would call procurement. So then it gets into the definition of purchasing versus procurement. So a couple different things there. Procurement, I look at the overall, if I have to look down on it, procurement is the whole bubble to me that holds purchasing, tactical purchasing in there and a couple other aspects. You can talk to different people and they're going to define it different ways. I look at purchasing as almost being the transactional, run MRP, put the purchase order in the system, get it to the supplier, expedite the parts if you need them. Whereas I look at procurement as the management of that with other transactional pieces that need to be done. Our sourcing is headed by a gentleman who's a vice president. He, with his team, develops different policies. I, in the procurement space, work with their team, but we're developing more transactional policies that also affect the supplier. And then we collaborate together on, hey, we're doing this day to day, and here is our policy and process. It fits with what you all are doing, or maybe it doesn't. And I can give you an example. Every company is looking at their your costs. Standard cost versus what your actual cost is. Are we higher? Are we lower? And so with the sourcing team, we've put some processes together and some policies going forward where we work in tandem. If we, from a transactional standpoint, see a cost that is above our standard cost, it goes over to their team so they can have a chance to look at it, speak to the supplier. Why did you go up on our cost? What's going on? You know, and so we work in tandem with the sourcing department, but it's also in this day and time, we in this procurement niche are like the hub, and we touch sourcing, we touch operations, we touch planning, we touch, in our case, our order entry side as well. And we're kind of like the spokes all around us, and we're the hub that is the control of that, because we're dealing with the inventories, we're dealing with expediting parts, we're dealing with making sure we have the parts, and then everything that encompasses how do we automate all that to make it easier and faster, or is it manual, which is, you know, more difficult. But we touch every single department and work with them in collaboration to define some policies that we need to have in order to do business better and be a better company and get what needs to be done out to our customer base, which in our case is mainly casinos and type, you know, businesses like that.
Right. I like that you mentioned the operations and the planning side also. Absolutely. And even finance, you know, you need to be talking to finance. It's not
every day.
Oh, I work in procurement and I talk to everyone else in procurement. When you're thinking about the accountable resources for policies related to procurement, purchasing, and sourcing, you have to remember that, as in with all things in supply chain, this function touches so many parts of the business, and this person with the procurement title can't be the only person accountable for making sure that the policies and the processes are actually adhered to and developed. And then even because you mentioned automation. So let me see, we're skipping around. So we have, tool analysis. So actually, it's not so skipping around. So once we get into this third action item of conducting a robust tool analysis, when you think about who are the end users, who are the stakeholders, who is going to be affected by whatever we're going to implement, you have to think more than just procurement, and also more than just the supplier, and think about the internal teams as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And as far as tools go, we're kind of in that process, back to COVID. COVID has kind of taken us all in a direction that I don't know about your listeners' companies, but our company came back and it's not the same as it was. Not only are we doing business differently outside with the outside world, we're doing business differently inside. We also had the advantage of having new ownership take over our company in that COVID time period. So a little bit of chaos, as you can imagine, with any kind of change comes with that. So tools is huge for us. Right now, we're in the process of doing just this, analyzing what we have, what should we have, what could we do better with what we have. And one of the things that we found is that we, by acquisitions and mergers along the way, we adopted all of these different systems, that we have in place everywhere. So we've decided to go to one system. We have to bite the bullet and do it. We can't continue. We don't have visibility, good enough visibility, of everything happening in different places. And as you can imagine, it takes time and people to pull all that together. So one system this year for us, which is going to help us, doesn't mean, well, let me say this, one ERP system. Doesn't mean you can't have bolt-ons or different things that are needed to help you enhance your ERP system. But we're going to one system. As far as different tools, I love some of the stuff that's out there. We're not quite there yet. And the gaming industry, although we've got people in it now that are forward thinkers, and really thinking about the operation side of things and how a supply chain side of things. So I'm looking at things like for our sourcing team, can you automate contract management? Can you have a bot that's back there that sends out things that says, hey, time to renew the contract. We think we want to do this. And that prefaces, looks at all the data in the background and says, this is where the pricing should be. And let's try to go a little lower, just like we do in this realm. There's different things that you can actually talk to as far as, oh goodness, let me see. I've got a couple things that I wrote down that I wanted to make sure I talked about. Oh, as far as e-auctions, people still do e-auctions. Those can be automated. There's things that you can do that. What you're looking for is that predictive information that you can get back, and so spend analysis for procurement, for purchasing per se, it's always, what do I spend? Who do I spend it with? How can I spend less? How can I do things to make the money go further? And there are so many tools out there that will help you automate what you're doing, look at all the data, give you those facts. And we all know that it's all about data. I mean, it is 100% about data. Without data, we are absolutely nowhere. And so organizations like mine are getting smarter with, we need more visibility to this. What can we do to get this quicker? I even take it down to the easy level of training. If I hire a new buyer, a senior buyer, a regular buyer, which we're doing all the time, our company's growing, how can we have training that's put in place that, we all can go to an online course or whatever? How can we have training modules automated where we don't have to spend 2 weeks out of your time to train me now that I'm coming to work for you? You can say, hey, here's some cool things that we do, but for the next 2 weeks, you're going to be looking at this and listening to this. Now you're going to go on the floor with Robbie, who's going to show you this, that kind of thing. And there's just so much possibility out there with tools, that we can.
It's interesting that you mentioned the training piece, because I don't think that enough people consider that as part of the tool analysis. No. And the ease with which you can onboard a new user is very important. And when you're also choosing a software vendor, is that something that they can help you with? Do they have that online system to where it's a learning center and anyone can hop in and figure it out? And of course, maybe there were a couple of customizations or some nuances, but for the most part, it's very much self-serve. And if they don't have it, how easy is it for you to make those videos? Or like, are things changing so much all the time? And the system is, because we talk a lot about implementations and how easy it is to fall into the trap of over customization.
Sure.
And because one side of over customization is that, well, how do I now teach somebody if we're always customizing and adding something new, to our tool? Well, if you have to do so much to it in your analysis, maybe it's not the right tool for you.
You're right. No, you're right. And the over customization leads to lack of use is what we find. You get it to where it is so customized. Our day-to-day workers, the buyers, they're almost scared of it. It's like too hard, too much to learn, too much to know. They shy away from it. So you've got to be in the training realm, like you were talking about, it's got to be fairly simple. And I'm not saying that we can't understand complex. We can, but you want it to be simple, depending on which different automation you're talking about. I envision training that you come in. Let me make one thing clear. We can never do without people. We can never do without us live talking to each other and coaching and mentoring. But for just basic training, this is what you're going to do. Here's where you go for these SOPs that we've got, and links and different things like that. It's got to be fairly easy. We have a couple programs now that I look at, and when I go into them, I'm like, okay, what is this going to, where do I start? What's this going to give me? Is the benefit worth it? Because I'm going to have to spend 30 minutes to figure this out. And to me,
it's intuitive or user friendly, right?
They have to be. They have to be. But there are so many different things that we can automate, and that in our industry, we're starting to talk about. Procurement, well, let me just say supply chain as a whole. I would say some parts of supply chain work quicker with automation, but the purchasing side of things, not as quick. We're more kind of old school, and a lot of people that you had in it were very old school. We don't need this. We're already doing great. We don't need this. Well, no, it is amazing.
Yeah, I always say I also didn't need an iPhone when they came out, because like I have a camera and I have a phone. So like, why do I need both?
There you go.
And now, like,
there you go.
Why would you carry around a camera and a phone if you can have an iPhone? So,
that's right.
So it's the kind of textbook early adopter lagger. I don't want to like it. Things are comfortable. I'd rather just call up my friend who I've developed this really good relationship with, as opposed to getting that predictive and that proactive notification of, oh, this doesn't look right, and having that data, and having those dashboards, and all the time that it saves you. And it's very easy, in my opinion, to quantify dollars saved based off of time saved. That's the easiest. This is makes per hour, even if they're salary, divided by 40-hour work week. This is the hours that they're spending on this activity. There is the very easy cost analysis, very basic. So
that's what management's looking for too.
Right, which brings us into the last action item, which is to make sure you quantify the expected savings and ROI. And this makes me think level of effort versus impact. So the whole point is, cost savings. And you might take a quick dip because you have to pay for the initial implementation. You have to spend your time doing the initial implementation, but you should have a quantifiable expected savings for ROI in the long run. So what are some other things that you have used in, smaller company format and larger company format to say, this is why it makes sense to use a tool? What were some of those processes that were happening? You mentioned contract management. What are some other things that people can be thinking, hey, find a tool for this, regardless of the size of company, this is useful?
Okay, so for us in the procurement space, getting a PO to a supplier, old school way, and which a lot of people, when I say old school, I'm not talking like everybody's now in the future. Most of us are still kind of old school. So old school way, current way is to go run your MRP, see what I need to buy, manually enter your PO, email it. I'm going to email you and buy from you. Email back and forth, back and forth. Your buyers are drained with email all day long, back and forth, back and forth. You automate with a vendor portal with, I mean, there's companies out there that are fantastic that have either built into their ERP or bolt-ons like a SourceDay and companies like that, that literally automate your supplier interaction. Okay. So your PO goes right to the supplier. They look at it. They say, this looks good, except for we had a price increase. So they send it back with the higher price with a note that says price increase, metal went up per our contract to XYZ price. You get it back. You say, oh, that's right. Okay. I acknowledge. Then it kind of flows through a process and it allows for reporting. So you can take it as far as when they ship the goods, when the supplier ships the goods to you, they put in the pro number or they put in the vessel number or the commercial documents. Everything can be automated through this process where there really is no major interaction happening. So that can be a bad thing too, because you want the people-to-people contact. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, you're having those discussions with them on, hey, I'm going to call you about the price increase because we didn't expect this, you know, that kind of thing. But you can automate that entire process through through automation. It can be, you can either create your own bots and have it done internally. You can buy bolt-on products. There are different things that you could do, like a spend analysis is huge. We all look at our spend data and we run Excel reports, drop it to Excel and look and go, okay, so what am I going to do with all this? How do I save money? And it takes us time. Automate some of the spend data that gives you the analysis that says you have these 6 suppliers where you're purchasing these type items at this type dollar. Mm-hmm. Now, I would suggest, because it can be predictive, I would suggest you look at these, you know, or it would group batch these in certain ways that you can look at them and define, where is my spend? Wait a minute, I've bought this from, I can't tell you how many times you look at something and go, why is my buyer buying it at $5 instead of $3 from this other supplier? Was it a supply issue? They couldn't get it from the cheaper. So much of that.
So you get a lot of, once you get into doing things with technology, you get a lot of insights because, and how we talked about the people, it's not that the person is removed from this AI, you know, now driven process. It's that this person isn't sitting like scrubbing data and making Excel spreadsheets for
all day long.
You know,
all day long.
It's that the information is provided to them and they can maybe catch some of those things themselves, but without someone else having to say, oh, why did you buy this at,
correct,
you know, at $5 versus $3?
And they can be more strategic. And depending on the way your company is set up, our sourcing is more strategic than our purchasing group. However, if I didn't have 10 purchasing buyers sitting around all day scrubbing data, whether it's MRP or whether it's spend analysis, they could be really calling the supplier to say, wait a minute, I did see your price went up. Did you know you're a couple dollars high compared to where I can buy it from other places? They could be having those type communication, day-to-day communication, which would take that pressure off of our sourcing team. And our sourcing team could be having the larger discussions and finding other dual sources, maybe 3, you know, a third source. It all comes down to, as you said, the insight. And when you have that insight, you can basically make better decisions, quicker decisions, better decisions. You've got more time on your hands to do the things that are really important in today's work arena to get done. It's not just about scrubbing Excel spreadsheets. If you're still doing that, and I'm not going to say we're not, we do some of that still, but we're working to get out of that.
Right. And we,
even
with I mean, we are a tiny team. We are not $1 billion company. We are not $50 million. Like, we are very tiny. And we use a data visualization tool as well. When we're working with our customers, and, we created these Excel spreadsheets, but there are so many tools out there now that are also made for small businesses. And I always try to make sure that I mention that we're not, it's easy to read Forbes and New York Times and everything that talks about, what are these $1 billion companies doing? Even, 200, 300, $500 million companies, you don't work the same way if you're at 10 million or if you're at 15 million. But we just engaged recently. We kicked off a project with a company in the construction industry. And we're working through their process and trying to figure out what can be automated. And the reason why procurement came into my mind is that I have to talk about this. It's a $10 million company. They're not large. It's, maybe a 6-7 person team of employees, but we got through the process of, okay, we have a development project and we need to get bids from architects, designers, the skilled laborers, and the modular manufacturer, the logistics company. So you have 5 things that you're trying. And I was like, I am not going to help you do this via email. Like, we're not going to do email. Like, no. Even if it's, and they're not doing a lot of projects. Maybe 7 projects a year. But that process itself, if it's email, I get a PDF, I get an Excel spreadsheet, I put it in a folder, I put it in a different folder, I figure this out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that is just, it's time that you're not spending doing other strategic things of maybe getting the company from 7 projects a year to 9 projects a year. Exactly. Because you're spending, an entire day just organizing all of the bids that you just got from, 30 different potential suppliers.
And time is money,
time is money. If nothing else, if you're saving time, you're saving money. And then especially, in an environment, I know we've been talking about recession, we've been here in recession, but from, and they were talking about the economists at the Logistics Summit, we're talking about this. There is not full data that shows we are in a full economic recession, or that one is, tomorrow going to happen. There are a lot of industries that still have labor shortages, and automating, a lot of things is also a way to, avoid the cost of not having someone do the physical thing, or having to hire someone to do that thing. So definitely something to consider. Okay, so we've gotten a warning from Nicole. We've got 2 minutes to wrap up here. Next episode, I think I saw scrolling down the screen. Yes, April 14th, same time, we will be here. If you like what you saw today, then we would love for you to go to the newgenarchitects.com website. Scroll down at the bottom. There is a section that says subscribe to our newsletter. We will send out the recordings to all of these. You can also check it out on YouTube. And then you can always see the LinkedIn recording as well. That concludes today's show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching and supporting. If today's content resonates with you and you're seeking hands-on support for your business to do anything procurement and supply chain automation, digitalization, be sure again to visit newgenarchitects.com and schedule a discovery session with a member of the team. So we are going to wish everyone a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next month. Thank you so much for joining, Stephanie, and providing all of this.
This was great. Thank you so much. Love what you're doing.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.